From Las Vegas, Nevada, the entertainment capital of the world, welcome to On Air Education, a series dedicated to helping parents and teachers with distance learning. Today's guests include comedian George Wallace, the president of the Clark County Education Association, Marie Neisess, and director of community relations for the NBA Summer League, Carole Hattar. Hello, I'm Jonathan Scott, and welcome to On Air Education. During this time of distance learning, we realize that our 40-year background in broadcasting, combined with the talents of our friends in entertainment and education, can be of help to parents and teachers by sharing the skills of engaging an audience. The challenges that we face in Las Vegas and Nevada are global. We've put together a great panel of guests to share their experience and their skills and answer a few questions about the opening of our schools. Our first guest is known for his hundreds of TV appearances, movies, live Las Vegas shows, and now a new book, Dr. George Wallace, coming to us live from his home in Atlanta, Georgia. Hello, Dr. Wallace.
And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Whatever time it is, whatever day it is, I don't know. I'm just here. I'm enjoying life. Let me take my mask off because I'm trying to be cautious. I'm going by the safety rules, you know. I don't even trust myself. I'm trying to stay 6 feet away from me. How are you? How's everybody?
Well, everybody's great here in Las Vegas, except that we don't have enough laughter. And, we talk about engaging an audience, and I've asked you to participate because your skills as an entertainer, are second to none as far as engaging an audience. I've seen you so many times, and I love what you do when you ask somebody where they're from, and you say, "Oh, I'm from Chicago," and say, "Oh, I was just there yesterday."
Yes,
but some of the skills, and it takes them a few minutes, like 20 minutes in, to realize that you can't be in every city the day before. But
that's what's so amazing, Jonathan, when I do that, and people go, you see people in order, didn't he just say he was in Minneapolis yesterday? And they're falling for it. I cannot believe it. Yeah, but I'm just blessed because all I do is lie. I just love lying. I got the greatest job in the world. I just love lying.
We joked around before about when we were kids, distance learning meant we had to walk a couple of miles to school. But
right.
What was it like for you growing? Did you grow up in Atlanta?
I grew up in Atlanta, Linwood Park. I loved school. I only missed one day of school. My mom died when I was in the 12th grade, and I went to a funeral on that Monday. But I loved school. I was afraid I would miss something. I was not the class clown, but I was just afraid I would miss something happening in school. I love school. I love people just like I do today. And I'm glad you got the president of education. You know, they only hired her because her last name, they say she's the nicest. They say she's the nicest.
She's
That's
the
only reason
nicest.
she got the job.
Marie is the nicest.
That's the only reason she got the job.
They said Marie's the nicest. Let's use Marie.
Just think about it. Had it been somebody last name Best, she never would have gotten the
job. Now, if you engage an audience, I know you're conscious of it. What skills can you share with our teachers and our parents in helping these kids really learn through a 15-inch computer screen?
Well, it's amazing. The kids can do things that we can do that we never thought about doing today. And some kids, it may be tough. I don't know. I like being with people. At this time, it's so different for everybody. Everybody got their own thoughts, and I respect everybody's opinion on what to do and what not to do. So, but distance education being away, I don't know. I don't know what I could do. I would like to do it. Matter of fact, I need to go back to school and go online right now. How about that?
Well, I think you'd be great at teaching a class in something. I don't know.
No, not teaching. No, I have to be a student.
Just want to learn.
I can't teach. Yeah, I can't teach. What do I know? I went to night school. And, it's not that I had to go. It's just that, we live so far away. That,
By the time you got there, it was night.
It was dark, yes.
Well, I know that literacy is important to you because you're the author of 2 books. Let's talk about that. Your first book is called, well, that's your second book.
My first book is called Laugh It Off. And, we don't stop laughing because we grow older, but we do grow older because we stop laughing. I wish you had that. And the book was written by Jerry Seinfeld. My new book that's out this week is called Bull Twit. Bull twit, tweeting is the new thing now, and I couldn't say bull twit, so right. I thought I'd say bull twit, and that's me, Wally Bird. That's Wally Bird there, and these are online ramblings. My head. Twitter is so different than what I appear on, how I appear, tell jokes on stage. These are little things about like when I was a kid, we were so poor, like. When I was a kid, this is true. When I was a kid, we never knew we were so poor. My dog could only get one rabies. just things like that. We were just poor, and I live in Atlanta, raised here. We were so poor we could listen to the Pips. We never knew there was a Gladys night in the group. Little things like that. We never knew. When I got to, this is a true story. We were so poor. When I got to Las Vegas, we had heard about Donnie, but I didn't know that was a Marie. That's how poor we were. We could only listen to it. So that's what's in the book. And
yeah, you couldn't afford to pay attention.
Exactly. So things like that. And the book, and people are buying it like crazy. It's georgewallace.com. Go online. People are buying 5 and 6 at a time. The online ramblings, bull, twit, and whatnot. Some things I'll do. I just say crazy little online ramblings because, I've been doing stand-up comedy since the 1750s. I've been doing it that long.
1750s.
Well, maybe 1800s.
A lot of things, the kids miss that social interaction. And you have to miss a live audience.
I do. I miss the live audience. I miss performing, but right now I'm in a position where I've done 100,000 shows, and I'm concerned about and confused about the COVIDs, and I'm taking it easy. I've been in my home since March 14th. I haven't been in a grocery store since March 14th. I haven't been in a pharmacy. I live on the 25th floor in Atlanta. My daughter drove by to see me last week, and I went out on the balcony and I waved at her. I said, "Keep moving." Social distancing. That's as close as she's going to get. But I'm pretty concerned about this, and I'm going to be the first in line to get the vaccine when it becomes available for me.
Now, what tips, if any, do you have for our teachers and our parents to help keep the kids engaged with distance learning?
I don't know. I don't know about what they do, but if they keep some laughter there, that's cool. Keep laughter. Whatever you do, keep laughter involved. If you start laughing, you pretty much got them. Like one of my greatest comedian friends in the world, Joel Osteen, one of the greatest comedians in the world.
Joel Osteen.
He will not start a sermon without telling a joke. And he's talking to millions and millions of people. So you keep some laughter in your teaching, and I guarantee you the kids will want to learn. They will love you.
Well, George, we miss you and we miss the live audience, and we hope that you stay healthy and happy. We appreciate you spending a few minutes with us. And again, the name of the book is Bull Twit, and available at George Wallace.
Bull, Twit, and whatnot. And little shout outs in there. Yeah, little shout outs in there. I want to wish everybody a shout out to your favorite coat factory. Now, mine is Burlington.
Burlington Coat Factory?
That's the only one I know of.
I don't know why that's important at all, but we love you, we miss you. We can't wait until we see you and break bread and drink red and have a great time together. The great comedian, Dr. George Wallace.
I love you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Thank you so much.
And now, welcome. Again, my name is Jonathan Scott, and during this time of distance learning, we realized that our 40-year background could possibly help with distance learning and education. So we invited the president of Clark County Education Association, Marie Neisess, to join us, and of course, Carole Hattar, one of my mentors in broadcasting and doing education to begin with when we started in 2019 with NBA Summer League and Tomorrow Stars Foundation. But Marie, I've got to start with asking you, where are we at? What's going on? I know there was some agreement that was reached. Can you first of all, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much. Well, it's clearly been a stressful few months. Our educators are stressed, our families and of our students are stressed. We're happy to say that with Clark County, the Clark County School District, we have reached a memorandum of agreement that schools, whenever the trustees decide to vote to reopen schools, we have signed off that we will be amicable to opening up schools.
So all I know is what I read, and it's pertinent to kindergarten through third grade. Am I misinformed, or is
it's pre-K actually through third grade?
So what about the fourth graders? They got to still stay home?
Well, for right now, yes. We want to do this incrementally. We want to do it as safe as possible, not only for our educators and staff, but for our students as well. So it gives us the opportunity to work out any kinks, because class sizes aren't as large as they are at the high school level from pre-K to 3. We have the largest class sizes in the nation. However, they're smaller at the pre-K to 3 third grade level, and so we're just going to start off small.
People don't know that Clark County is the 5th largest school district in the United States. You've got, roughly 18,000 teachers?
Yes, we represent over 18,000 educators here in Clark County.
And roughly 300,000 kids?
Yes.
About that?
Yes.
Carole, you were instrumental in starting a charter school,
Sure.
So you've got a background in education as well.
Thank you. And Marie, again, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, I did. I worked on the legislation for charter school back in 1997, 1998 with two iconic educators, V. Wilson and Dr. David Price, in opening a school. And it was a distance education type of school, the first school in the state that did that. So that's why I find things a little bit surprising that 22 years ago, distance education was in fact happening. And yet we're kind of faced in this situation that our teachers have been put into of trying to struggle and figure out what to do. So it seems like we had a 22-year gap. But hopefully everyone's got it right now. I follow a lot of the Facebook groups for teachers because some of my very best friends are teachers. And one of the biggest questions I think that we all have as the community, are teachers required to go back?
Well, one of the things we negotiated was choice not only for families and for their students, and their children, but also for our educators, because across the nation, it's been in the mid 40% of families who've actually opted for their children to go back. So we feel that it can be doable for our educators to have a choice as well.
Is that here locally, are we at about 40%, would you say, of parents who want to send their children back to school?
Well, I believe, I follow those social media groups as well, and some of the parent groups are back and forth as to whether or not they will be sending their child or children to school. So, it still remains to be seen, because I think a survey needs to go out that's very clear, and I think the parents were not sure of where we were at the point when they sent it out from the district a couple weeks ago, as well as for our educators. Now that we have an agreement, what does that mean? As a teacher, am I going to opt to want to go back into the building, or am I going to opt to stay home? It's a very decisive decision for some of our educators. Some are very gung-ho and want to be back in the building. But we all understand that distance learning is a struggle for some of our students, and it's been a struggle for our educators as well.
What if more children want to go back to school than teachers we have who want to go back into the classroom? Then what do we do?
Well, we have over 18,000 educators, and we really don't have a concrete number yet. I think that data needs to be gathered. How many actually want to be in the building versus how many want to continue distance learning, or telecommuting?
Tell me if this is a misconception. This is the general feeling, just that the parents want the kids to go back into school and the teachers want to continue the distance learning. Is that a misconception?
I think so. I think, we have plenty of educators who are ready to be back in the building. They're burned out. This has been extremely difficult for them, as well as our families of our students. But this is not something we went to college for. And like to your point, 20 years ago, you said, but we just this is what happens in Clark County when we don't fund it adequately, because we didn't have the infrastructure to do it. Our students didn't have what they needed. They didn't have the technology. So all of a sudden, to flip a switch to say, let's do distance learning, as an educator, as a classroom teacher, did I get prepared for that in college, to all of a sudden take my lessons and make it be effective through a computer screen?
That's what we talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, you were on the air with us, several months ago, and we talked about pretty much the same kind of thing. You taught third grade, is that?
Yes, and I've taught first grade before as well.
See, I even remembered that. And George said, "You're the nicest." That's why you couldn't hear what George Wallace had to say. You're the nicest. So, yeah, I mean, that's the general conception, is that the parents want to get the kids out of the house. But we've also talked about the challenges and how teachers are spending an inordinate amount of time, more time than they ever did before, preparing their classroom studies. But let's move off of that, and let's talk to safety a little bit, and what protocol is in place right now.
So right now we did have a voluntary program called TIES, the Task Force Initiative for Educator Safety and Screening. Hopefully I got that correct. And to think about going back in the building, we were looking at the largest school districts, and one of them in New York. We looked at what they were using, and their model is that they have mandatory testing. So we have a mandatory testing that'll be random. So depending on how many students in each building, as well as educators and staff are in the building, a certain percent will be randomly selected to be tested.
So not everybody's going to get their temperature taken going in the door?
As far as students, I don't know. I only bargain for the educators. So educators every morning will have to, on their app that they have, you can either download on your phone or your computer, you will do your symptom tracing on there.
Marie, do you know if the teachers are going to be tested before they go back to school, and are the students going to be tested who go to school, so that we at least have a baseline?
Well, I mean, I wish that we could do that, but again, I can't bargain on behalf of students. I know other districts have done that, like in New York, they're also testing the students, and their families have to sign off, on that they're going to wear a mask and that they will be tested, but we don't have that particular thing in place right now here in the district.
So safety protocol for the teachers will consist of what?
So the testing, the contact tracing, as well as PPE, we want to make sure that everything that they need to feel safe as possible will be there and be provided for them, as well as what that cleaning protocol looks like. It has to be in place in the educator's hand before they step foot on that campus, because we want to reassure them that the district has a plan of action of what it'll look like to sanitize those classrooms from one group of kids to the next.
Well, that's a really good point that you bring up, and bringing up New York, and I've read their protocol quite a bit. Do you know, in protecting our teachers, like you say, you can't advocate for the children, but in protecting our teachers, I know New York, they have the plexiglass partitions, especially around the teacher's desk and that sort of thing to help keep our teachers safe. Are we at that point that you've heard of here in the district, in the classrooms, of doing something like that?
No, then that's a good question. I want to know exactly what those particulars are, because educators, some of them requested that. Sure. And it always comes down to funding. So, how do we keep everyone safe? To me, if a teacher wants that or an educator wants that, then they should have that.
Well, and also I know New York put in filtration systems. Some schools are newer, some schools are older. We have some very old schools here that have been around 50, 60 years. I'm sure their air systems are not exactly the same as something brand new. And I saw that they were bringing in actual portable filtration systems into those classrooms to help circulate the air. I'm sure that would make the teachers feel much more comfortable if they knew they had something like that.
Yeah, and that is in the plan. I mean, it's over a 250-page document, the reopening plan that the district put out. But educators are leery of how old the buildings are and the air conditioning system, and the lack of support staff employees that we have, our custodial staff, to be able to clean as in depth as they say in the plan. So we want to make sure that all of that is in place before anyone steps foot on those campuses.
Do you think that parents are aware that all of these things have to take place before they send their child back, or are they just so anxious, as Jonathan said, to get their children back in school that they're not even asking these questions?
Well, I think the pandemic has brought to light exactly how long we've underfunded education here in Clark County. Not only from the lack of materials, our class sizes being too large, and even the infrastructure of our buildings. I mean, some of our buildings have leaky, roofs, their ceilings, and the tiles have just things on them that the teachers are taking pictures of, and they're like, is this mold? What is this? And you want me to be on that campus? So they are concerned, not only for their health, but as well as their students.
Now, we talked about on the radio when you were with me several months ago, Wi-Fi. Back originally in Clark County, and again, this is really global now, but 30% of the kids here didn't have Wi-Fi. Now, I know that number's been reduced. Where is it at now? Is it?
We still don't have 100%. I mean, I can't give you the exact number where it was about a month ago, but that was part of the problem. Is our children they don't get an equitable education depending on their socioeconomic status. The equity is not there, and that's very concerning, because our children who have been historically underrepresented, continue to be so.
And we talked about choice. Where does the choice come in with the teachers from your perspective, whether they want to go back in the classroom or they want to continue?
Well, first and foremost, we want to take the population of educators who are high risk. We have some that are they have health concerns and issues, and so they have that.
Older.
Yeah, well, just some of their underlying health issues. And yes, and age can play a part of that. But then we also have educators who are living with someone who's at high risk as well. So we felt that the choice factor was very important because we feel that there's enough educators who we've been continuing to hear from who feel like their voice isn't being heard, that they want to be back in the classroom. And so, it's a complex issue to make sure that we are bargaining on behalf of all 18,000 educators.
I'm curious about how you feel about the vaccine and teachers, because I noticed that they were not very high up on the list on the first thing that I saw come out from the state. I believe they're in tier 2, like number 13 or something like that. It was way down the list. Wouldn't we, the main thing is keeping our teachers safe. Without the teachers in the classroom, there are no students in the classroom. So do you see any way to move our teachers up on that list so that they can be provided the vaccine should they want it? And if they don't want it, then are they going to be mandated to take it to go back in the classroom, or what's your feeling on that?
So that's a very complex question. For me personally, I'm ready to volunteer. I'll be the first educator in line to get it. However, there are educators who are leery of getting the vaccination, and they don't want any part of it. And there are other educators who don't want to be back in the buildings until they are vaccinated. So yes, to me, it should be a priority for those educators who want to take the vaccine.
But nothing would happen to them if they didn't want to take it.
Right now, we haven't crossed that bridge because that
see.
wasn't part of this agreement so far. But when that comes, then we're going to have to deal with those choices of what that looks like. Now, in the agreement right now, if an educator opts not to be tested, then they would have to telecommute.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to the workload of the educator, are they getting overtime? Are they they're putting in way more hours than they bargained for to begin with? How are you dealing with the workload?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we've heard from educators, they're getting burned out. They want to be as effective as possible and meet the needs of all of our students. And, to your point, how do we keep them engaged? How do we make our lessons all of a sudden be as engaging as it is when we're in front of students? So they've spent a number of hours trying to prepare, and the workload is tremendous for them, as well as our families. So, that was one of the things we looked at. We discussed with the district to possibly, take something off their shoulders, but it's a very complex issue, how you turn education into an online format and have every educator be prepared.
Well, we talked about that last time also as well, that teaching math on a virtual basis is different than teaching art or music or English as a second language. So the challenge from the teachers has to be monumental, not just here in Clark County or in Nevada, but this is going on globally.
Yeah.
So the workload is just something. Carole, you have?
I do. A teacher asked me when I told her that we had you on, to ask this question that they're not sure of. If they were to get sick in the classroom, and undoubtedly, number-wise, statistically, someone will get sick in the classroom. If they were to get sick and have to be out for the 14 days or 10 days or whatever, does that go against their vacation?
Sick days.
Their sick days?
No, absolutely not. Our position has been that has to be covered the 10 days right now through the CARES dollars if they were to get sick. So, but if an educator tests positive and they can continue to work from home and they aren't struggling with their health, then they could do that as well.
That's a good point. But if they are struggling with their health when they're at home, let's just say, I'm not sure what happens to the classroom of kids that are in the class when the teacher's not there. Is there a substitute who comes in the classroom now? To handle the kids that are in person while the teacher's at home. But if they are at home and they are too sick, to teach or something like that, then what happens? Because as I recall, we don't have an abundance of teachers to begin with and substitute teachers either. Then what happens to those students?
Exactly. That's what's challenging is they would have to get a substitute. And during a normal school year, those classrooms are sometimes split up. But because of COVID and distance learning, we can't split up those classrooms. So the difficulty will be who is going to step foot into that classroom if they can't get a long-term sub or a sub to cover the classroom. So, I know that is a challenge. It's always a challenge because until recently they weren't even paying our subs, a decent wage and a decent amount. But they did give them a raise, and I believe it's because of the shortage and COVID. But, there are some subs who refuse to go in the building as well because they're concerned about their health.
Well, that's my last question to you is funding. Are you getting more funding, less funding, same funding? Is it a big issue?
Well, I mean, the governor recently came out that he wants a 12% cut. So it's very concerning for our educators because, we've always gotten the short end of the stick here in Clark County. Our students have not had the optimal funding that they deserve. And so now we're going into the legislative session with that heavy burden that there's going to be that cut. CCEA put into initiative petitions, whether popular or not, we want to ensure that the conversation is had. When are we finally going to put education first? Because clearly COVID has taught us that the lack of funding has extreme negative impact on our students and the mental health of our students. That keeps being brought up, but that was always there. The issue was always there. The concerns of one child committing suicide is one too many. But where was the funding there? When was the funding for our social workers and our counselors and our psychologists and to take the caseloads down to where they're supposed to be?
So for our parents that are watching, let's wrap it up. What advice do you have for the parents as far as distance learning and getting the kids back in school?
Hang in there. Educators are doing the best that they can. If they stepped up and they've tried to make the lessons as effective as possible, and without your support, it makes it more difficult. So I think this is a team effort, a community effort, and we're all trying to do the best that we can.
And globally, what about globally? What have you learned from all this that you can share with a global audience?
I've learned, that, teachers once again, adapt and overcome the difficulties and challenges that they have. But, we're burning people out. And unfortunately, I'm worried about the number of educators who are going to leave the profession and for people who don't want to actually become an educator anymore because of some of the things that we're dealing with.
Marie Neisess, president of Clark County Education Association. Thank you so much. I know you're so busy and you're up to your eyeballs for sharing a few minutes with us. Carole Adams Hattar, thank you for your questions and your insight.
Welcome.
And of course, I have to thank my good friend, comedian Dr. George Wallace, who's got a new book out called Bulltwit, and go to georgewallace.com. My name is Jonathan Scott. You've been watching On Air Education. If you have any questions, you can go to our website, onaireducation.com. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you, ladies, for joining me. And thank you, everyone, for being patient and we're all going to get through this. We're going to be fine, everybody. Keep a smile on your face and stay safe and stay happy. Thanks for tuning in.